Good evening, ladies and gents, and welcome to the WGL EU Season 4 Match Week 5. We have some great games coming up today, and before we get to that, obviously, I am your host, Lauren Pansy Scott, and I'm joined by Laughter WOT to be the analysis throughout all of this, to give us the in-depth, really, towards all the tanks we're about to see, because, as we said, 3 great games coming up today, but let's make sure we have a little bit of a look back through what we've seen building up to this, because we are getting really into this season now, and it's starting to get a little bit closer, and the front runners are starting to kind of edge ahead a little, but not by a lot, and you can see how close this is through and through.
Yeah, Kaz and the crew, very impressive at the top of the table. I think at the beginning of the season, I kind of thought, look at those guys. They're kind of a bunch of players who haven't really played that much before, although they still have 4 core members. The 3 they added have been really impressive. Elian still sitting at the top of the tables on eu.wgleague.net and the Hall of Fame there. Virtus.pro in second. That might change after today's match against Freefall, against Evil Panda Squad even. So I'll have to wait and see how that happens. But School Bus and TCM on the same amount of points. I think that was an extremely good match last week. All in all, the table, I think, starting to take shape a little bit. Yeah,
I completely agree, and especially the way, 1 to 4 is so damn close at the moment, and even 5 now. EPS would need a strong victory here to take over TCM and School Bus to get up into that top 3. But then again, even the top 3 could change, because Virtus.pro basically need, well, anything above a draw pretty much to get ahead of Kazna Crew, as Kazna slipped a little earlier against Wusa of all opponents, very much down the bottom. And we are seeing a couple of the smaller, slower teams building into this, finally picking up victories as well. So the likes of Isuba, Freefall, Lucky Kuraki, I don't think I can call them a small team. They're the ones who've been picking up victories against the very best, which is the more surprising part. These guys have dismantled teams that have been looking near on untouchable. Is this going to be another case of that today? Because today's opponent haven't been playing that well. Lucky Kuraki have been. The 2 victories they picked up have been against very solid teams. Could this be a 3rd victory for Lucky Kuraki today?
They've been extremely impressive. I think they slipped a little bit in the previous match they played, but they are, in general, a pretty good team. Denial Esports has been a little bit shaky, as you mentioned.
Very slow to start.
Very, very slow. They're losing against Freefall. That was pretty much their biggest defeat so far. But altogether, I think Denial have got themselves together. Obviously, losing Elian was a big, big blow for them. So I think that first game for me is going to go to Denial. Second game, Virtus.pro, the infamous Russian powerhouse, takes second at the grand finals, only to Na'Vi and Evil Panda Squad. A team that's really been put together this season, seems to be doing pretty good, sitting down 5th on that leader table, and finally the 2 Finnish teams. Yeah,
and the 2 Finns actually, both fairly similar in styles, a very close related team, obviously coming from, as you said, the clan that, kind of formed both of these in itself. So seeing who wins, that would certainly be a grudge match between the 2, I can imagine. So the teams, there'll be some good Finnish banter that I'll try and translate very poorly for you guys at home. Might have to get Wilkie to kind of help us out a little there. But obviously that'll be the final game to round us off today. It's the same format as ever. And, well, that first game is going to be phenomenal. And it's a big changing point possibly for Denial. As we now know, they're a team through the previous seasons who have warmed up midway through and they start climbing. This would have to be the first rung on that ladder, and Lucky Kuraki are not an easy opponent to face off against. They're the team that seems to turn up a little better against better teams. If they're playing against maybe a lower skilled team or someone who's maybe not as easy to work out, they seem to struggle a little. But you put them against someone quite competent, they were able to pick up some maps. Now, I don't know if Denial will underestimate them. I kind of hope they don't. But what are your thoughts on that matchup there? Is this going to be a close game? Or is this going to be one of the Lucky Kuraki victories that surprise us all?
Lucky Kuraki have been very, very good. They've really seen how they can react to situations very well. They've been a very thinking man's game, and I think they're going to struggle a little bit against Denial Esports because they are obviously both Polish teams, and Denial knows how they're going to play. And I think they're more experienced against them. But all in all, I think it's going to be a pretty close game, although I do think Denial's a bit better than them. Lucky Kuraki had that one slip up, although, they did well against School Bus 3-2 victory against them. It's hard to keep those those results constant and coming in, because beating one good team once is fair enough, but you've got to get that consistency to really head up the leader table.
Yeah, I start looking at them almost like the new Spale to the season here, with the victories against, previously we saw the likes of Spale actually beating School Bus, Virtus.pro, and a couple others that surprised most of us in that sort of aspect. But whether or not they can actually do that now is a very different kind of matter. These guys, Denial, have a lot to now prove. They've certainly had the pressure put onto them, not picking up victories in games they really should have. they haven't even played the very top end of the table at the moment either, which is the more surprising part. They've kind of played the mid to bottom, so you'd assume they'd be within that top 5, top 3 even, you know, considering how well they played during those World Finals, the Grand Finals that weren't too long ago. But then you do have to weigh in how much of an impact losing Elian was, and clearly it's been quite the factor. But I believe the teams are getting themselves ready, so we can start looking towards who to look out for in these two, and you know who's really going to be the big players in this for this one. And for me, in Denial, you know, there's a couple of players who certainly have the potential, but Butcher hasn't seemed to be too changed by the lack of Elian. He's still doing what Butcher does best, i.e. landing those shots. But anyone else, who do we need to look at here from that side?
The team captain, I think, is going to be very instrumental. Carmen and Snip, 2 players who are been pretty good. Meritorious has been lacking a little bit. I think he needs to step his game up in this matchup and just through the season in general. But all in all, pretty stacked lineup of very experienced, well-bonded players. So there's no really one in particular. You mentioned Butcher, obviously their top player, I think, and he's been extraordinary, really. But I would like to see more Denial players in that leaderboards further up towards the top.
Yeah, definitely. And lucky Kuraki, it's hard to look over some very specific players who've been playing well. It's easy to point out Kuraki. He's been phenomenal to this point. Kelly has had the moments, and Matt PL as well. Brilliant players. Those 3 to me are starting to build into, you know, characters that we could be looking at maybe even, you know, in a couple of seasons' time, switching in for a couple of others in Denial. It seems like Denial likes to take, you know, some of these upcoming Polish players and kind of work them into that lineup. Certainly could be a couple to pick up from this. You know, who hasn't quite stood out to us yet, do you think? Who's maybe the weaker link within Lucky Kuraki who needs to find their footing here?
I think Jamal and Bishu probably the weaker links there. Especially when you're comparing them to the likes of Kelly and McMoney, who have been extraordinary. Especially Kelly has been absolutely fantastic. Probably one of the most experienced players, I think, 2010, 2011, where he really started playing in World of Tanks competitions, and it really does show in his play style. Extremely, extremely good. You know, makes the right calls and is in the right position, which really only comes with, you know, experience and time.
God, years of just, not necessarily conditioning, but, you know, smoothing out any of the errors. And even as an individual, he looks so solid in any situation you drop him into. And that's what's really surprised me about some of the Lucky Kuraki players. They, you know, I looked at other teams who came into this season then, so I looked down towards the C plays, you know, a couple of those who've not really performed, Isuba, for example. And I don't really see the players in that sort of aspect. I don't see them quite up there on the echelons. I've seen some of these Lucky Kuraki players kind of hit very early on. I believe there's one player, I think it is from Isuba, who's constantly doing well for himself in the 1390s. Can't recall his name, but there are a couple of standouts. But
Koskos probably.
It might have been, but still, there's a lot of talent in that Lucky Kuraki lineup. What sort of maps do they need to look towards to be able to pick up the victories here? Because Denial, they're a hit-and-miss team. So where are the best strengths for Lucky Kuraki to pounce?
So Denial are probably the best way to look at is what Denial's good at, and then maybe we can look at what they're bad at. So Prokhorovka and Steps, I think that's Denial's kind of territory, I think, as well. Cliff might come in there, although we've seen a lot of teams struggling to get the wins. Denial at least will get the advantage. So the kind of open maps, a little bit more dynamic maps, definitely Denial's game to lose. And for Lucky Kuraki, I think Himmelsdorf, Ensk, Ruhenberg, those kind of maps are definitely going to be where they can pick up the wins against, and maybe even Prokhorovka after a pretty impressive stretch against School Bus. But they're certainly a team of well trained players on those city maps, and the more predictable and perhaps the more linear in terms of tactics and a little less dynamic.
And I believe the first map will be Cliff, if I'm not mistaken. I may be wrong, but if that is the case, I looked through my previous stats of, you know, where Lucky Kuraki have picked up the wins, and they lost it against School Bus. That's no surprise. You know, Russian teams or Ukrainian teams are always very solid on this, but Lucky Kuraki actually managed to pick up Cliff against TCM in their last play day together. So certainly something to look at. And Ruhenberg and Prokhorovka, so they've shown their strength on those open maps, which does surprise me a little. But still, I'm hoping to see something quite strong from them today. We are just waiting for all the players to join up and get this one started. But as you said, Cliff, what sort of game do you think we'll see? There's always the chance of the passive game. If you want to draw Cliff, as you said, it's very possible. You can play for the draw. Do you think we'll see that today, though?
Well, it's always an option. That's the problem with Cliff. It's a really balanced map and it's very good for 742. But if a player just wants to run off and find himself a little hole somewhere in the map, it's very easy to do so. We've seen, I think, 3 draws now on that one. The most notable, TCM Gaming versus School Bus, where TCM were very close to winning, and School Bus managed to...
Too late.
Exactly, they managed to run away in time. So, you know, it's a hard map to play. I think it's a little bit disappointing for some teams, but generally, you want that middle area. If you look at the heat maps for Cliff, the area below the lighthouse, the kind of cliff, in the middle central area, that's really where you want to be getting, because that's where you can push off from. You kind of have map dominance, and obviously if you want to, you can counter attack towards the lower side, the 1, 2, 3 line, the 1, 2 line, and you really have a lot of options when you go through. But it's still hard to push from there on out because of the kind of cover and the bushes the other team will have on the other side.
Yeah, definitely. But overall scoreline, what are you predicting here between these two?
I think it could either be a walkover for Denial, or it's going to be very close and Lucky Kuraki could take it. So I think like a 2-1 maybe, a couple of draws in there, maybe a 3-2. Or Lucky Kuraki could just do one of their fantastic performances and just take it 3-1 or something. But I think generally it's going to be around that 3 mark where we'll see the win from Denial Esports.
So you're saying Denial overall, possibly either complete
they got a more
whitewash
chance of winning,
or a very close drawn-out game that Lucky Kuraki might pick up. So guys at home, obviously, this is where we ask you guys to get involved. Obviously on Facebook and Twitter, there will be votes up, which will give you a chance to get some prizes in your pockets. So head on over to there. You can see Facebook and Twitter just down below where Ollie's hand once was, down this way. It's a beautiful place to be, right?
Yeah, sure.
And do make sure you go over there, get your votes through, and tell us who you think will be winning this game, either Lucky Kuraki or Denial. 2 Polish teams, you know, facing off head-to-head here. Will this be a grudge match, do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I don't think they've ever really faced each other in like a big LAN finals, you know, like a season finals, but they faced each other a few times, and it's always the Polish community. They always like to have a lot of
bragging rights
and a lot of I don't know, a lot of competition, and they have a lot of arguments together. So I think obviously one Polish team against another one, it's always who's going to be the best Polish team. So for sure, it's a little bit of a grudge match.
I can't agree more. And considering, you know, the player base of World Tanks within Poland is a massive tank country, they love it out there. Certainly going to get some viewers in on this one to try and enjoy this together. But we are just waiting, I think, on the nod to start making those tank choices begin and kind of get themselves ready for that first map, which we assume is Cliff. I think it might be. And we've seen some variation, some not to my, you know, my taste or the way I like. You know, the IS3s, not really enjoyed them. 5100s have a place, I feel, but not to the extent where we've seen it really in common practice. But what sort of, you know, tank picks do you think we'll actually see coming from these two here? Just
the standard stuff, I imagine. Lucky Kuraki have been known a couple of times on this map to pick like the double 5100. But it's more unlikely as the day goes through, and more unlikely as the season goes through, because it's not worked basically. It simply hasn't worked yet, and when it does work, it's kind of a fluke win, and you kind of think, well, was that really the reason? Because they picked out because the other team just really screwed up and didn't realize how to actually counter the other team.
It may have been a bit of a part of it, so I think we are just waiting on the tank picks still. Not being made just yet, surprising really. But hopefully that'll begin very soon. As you said, standard tank picks, a couple of 2 T69s maybe, a couple of 1390s in there. Do you reckon that's pretty much covering all the bases?
Yeah, I think so. Double AMX 1390, triple T69, double tier 1 is going to be more of a standard lineup for us altogether.
Yeah, so looking forward to that, and especially when we see Butcher, if he does pick up that 1390, been an instrumental player to Denial, keeping them even in the close games going in his favour. So certainly something to keep your eyes on there if he does pick that one up. We are just going to be looking at Lucky Kuraki. Who's going to be playing what here? Because I've seen Kurak doing well on, you know, the 1390s, as is Matt PL occasionally. You know, who's playing what tanks for them?
Well, it looks like they've got more of a lighter lineup for Denial. I think they're a standard team, so they like to pick their triple T69, double AMX 1390 or triple AMX 1390 double T69, and imagine obviously Butcher will be playing that AMX 1390, you know, so on and so forth. And it is going to be that indeed. Lucky Kuraki, triple AMX 1390 double T69 double tier 1, and for Denial it's going to be the double T69 triple AMX 1390 double tier 1. So the only difference is that Lucky Kuraki have picked the extra T69, Denial have picked the extra AMX 1390, which is what we'd expect to see. We've seen it plenty of times before. It's not really any of a surprise. And it might just give Lucky Kuraki a little bit more hull down ability. Denial haven't performed well on Cliff. with that triple AMX 1390 lineup, but they're still trying to make it work because they know it works.
Yeah, there's, we know the tanks work in that situation. It's just getting the players to play them to the extent they become viable. So we do see a couple of those choices coming in now. They're picking up the tanks, so it shouldn't take too long. And I think that I'm probably in the same boat as you here. I think this is going to be a draw out. I don't think Denial are confident as a team overall, considering the way the league's gone, to be able to kind of come into this game and be confident on Cliff, a map that they know they could draw out and then try and aim at the others. So that's what I think we're going to see. We're going to see a draw on the first map. Unless Lucky Kuraki fancy their chances, that's when it may change. But to me, I think Denial will play the passive game with the T69s, as we saw, Elian pulling off before when he knew maybe they didn't like this map, but they saw the push happening a little later. I think that's what will happen. We see Lucky Kuraki picking up quite an aggressive line, though. I say aggressive, it's just because there's a lot of 1390s. Yeah. That's not necessarily indicative of a push, though, is it?
Not really. And actually got it wrong. It's both teams have the triple AMX 1390s, so going to be a completely mirrored lineup, and it's kind of cancel each other out a little bit. It just depends on which team actually wants to go forwards on the push. But as again, I think Denial is the more aggressive team. Lucky Kuraki have been aggressive pretty lately, but Denial in general, I've always been known to be pretty going forwards in the offensive movement. I think, anyway, at least that's my opinion.
So we told you guys how to get involved, obviously. Head on over to Facebook and Twitter. We are now seconds away from starting into the first map here. Maybe get a little taster of how these two play before you make your choices. There's still a couple of minutes left, I can imagine, until Melly will appear and tell you how it's done properly. She is now obviously with us in the studio, so she'll be jumping on camera after the game we have ready. Now coming up, I think Denial just saying they're ready, as a Lucky Kuraki, so we're now seconds away. I think this is going to be a draw. Your last thought?
I think Denial could take it.
He's going to stick with Denial. So guys, let's get ourselves ready for that first map, which is going to be Cliff. Alrighty, welcome into the first map. It is going to be Cliff, and in the north in red it's Lucky Kuraki. In the south in blue is Denial Esports. What are we seeing from the very offset?
Denial heading up towards the cliff area below the lighthouse, as per usual, as we would expect. And that's pretty much the standard start. And for Lucky Kuraki, they're doing pretty much the same.
Yeah, let's see how this one goes. Mapiel, McMoney, Kelly and Bishu heading up and away. See what they can do, but there's no real surprises. Standard positioning, I feel, from the very offset, not indicative of too much just as of yet, and we'll have to wait and see how this one goes down. Butcher has appeared on the horizon. You can see McMoney and Matt PL doing just the same thing, and well, at the moment no shots fired, so a little bit of a not an aggressive start from either team, getting the standard positions. But is there any variations you're liking here?
No, it's the standard thing. I think Lucky Kuraki a little bit more towards the lighthouse than we see a lot of teams. Usually only they leave maybe one AMX 1390, perhaps two Zenith, receiving that first shell down to 852 for 1100, 1100 HP on the AMX 1390. It's a base. But Denial, they have in the stand position, they have a little bit of an advantage. Really, what Lucky Kuraki do from here? Do they look for the way in? Do they try and flank around? They've got plenty of options still on the card, and they're winning by a little bit amount of HP. Obviously, that won't make a massive difference, as Butcher does aim across, trying to look for a shot onto, I believe, Kelly there in his AMX 1390, but he's a danger man, so it'll be pretty hard to catch him out.
Yeah, so Kelly, as you said, just peeking round, looking for something, but this is what we expect on Cliff. It's not a fast-moving map unless someone goes insanely aggressive, so this will probably be what we see for another couple of seconds until maybe someone gets more of an advantage. We saw Zenith getting a little bit of a tap earlier on, one shell down to 852, but not really enough to go off just yet, is it?
No, it's pretty standard stuff. Near Pizzoni, maybe he's going to start peeking over that. He's going to maybe try and find a little bit of a movement if he can, but it's really about what Denial, as I said before, do from here on out. Can they maybe, use those T69s to go hull down. They don't want to lose against Lucky Kuraki. This is a game they should really be looking to win as opposed to drawing it out or, perhaps doing anything like that. It's more of the aggressive stance that they need, and certainly are a team that can go forwards and be aggressive while also winning at the same time. So that's really what we need to be seeing from this point onwards. But if they want to pick themselves up as a team, they need to start getting these wins down. They've already lost one game, which they shouldn't have done. Drawn one as well. They're losing points as they go through the season, and that's certainly not a good thing. Although, yeah, they are a team that doesn't do so well at the beginning, with only 11 match days instead of 22 with a new format for Season 4. That simply isn't an option anymore. You need to be on point from the absolute get-go.
Yeah, it's something they're going to have to keep in mind here. As you said, it's getting to, mid-season now pretty much. And they're really not impressing just yet. And Lucky Kuraki not fancying their chances here. 6 minutes left. When's that cut-off point? When is it too late to really win a game? That's the big thing here. When is, with the tanks in mind.
Well, it's too late already, pretty much. Well, it on Cliff, I think 4 minutes is a reasonable amount of time. You can't go for the 2.5 minute mark, which is what a lot of teams seem to be doing.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work. If one of these two teams don't push at 4, maybe 3.5 minutes, then it's going to be a draw, pretty much 100%, unless they get very lucky or the other team screws up real bad. And that's just the nature of Cliff, and you can tell that's what the two teams are looking for. As Nia Pozzoni just let a couple of shells fly towards Mac Money there in his AMX 1390. No connection so far, only ZNF receiving some damage, down to 852 as I mentioned earlier. But yeah, the cut-off point's very high for Cliff, as I mentioned, because of the cover and the kind of options you can have to run away.
Yeah, I do like this positioning out from McMoney there, but it was a little bit short-sighted. You can see the barrage of shells that landed right behind him on that cliff there, so hopefully McMoney can stay fairly safe. But as you mentioned, he's still quite far away from the action, so even if they do take him down, there's still the massive amount of players still within the centre of this map. So, it's a long way off a big engagement. Shock, though, trying to do something, and I'm not used to seeing Shock here, actually, with that T69. I'm kind of wanting to see where his positioning is. Maybe a sub, maybe one of the players not ready for it today and backed away a little. Hopefully he can step up and do as well as the others. Potomaka there just appearing up. A couple of pot shots made. Nothing really finding its place though, so still very much a stalemate. No one looking to go for the victory, it seems, throughout this game. And we might see a garbage time push, but I can imagine that's really about it.
Yeah, possibilities, obviously. It's the thing where, when you remove the tier points from the whole equation, where you have we had the 8 tier point rule, right? When a team has more than 8 tier points than the other team, that team does get the win. Now we've removed that, we're seeing more action, but less meaningful action. So we see we see the same amount of draws pretty much, but for instance, now all the teams are pushing at the 2.5 minute mark, the 2 minute mark, because they know they can draw it out if they really want to. But whereas before, we saw teams pushing it right away because they knew if they had the 8 tier points more, then they could win it without having to worry about a draw at all. And if they kept a couple of tier 1s alive and if the other team just simply beat them, then that's simply a thing. It's always about testing rules with all games. You want to see which works best. In my opinion, I think maybe a 16 tier point rule, which we worked out and go for, would certainly help. Obviously, we can say, okay, we've put the time to 7 minutes, but that's not fixing anything. We're not fixing anything by putting the time to 7 minutes. We're just giving 3 minutes less time for the teams to make something happen. It's superficial by any means. You need to make bigger changes towards the rules, like a 16-point rule, as I mentioned. So you have to have 16 points more than the other team to win. That makes you more likely to be aggressive because you can push in without knowing that, okay, damn it, I lost a tier 8, so I'm going to lose now. You can lose 2 tier 8s, which is pretty much the cut-off point where you can win and lose in World of Tanks.
That sounds actually not a bad idea, but money. As you said, this is the thing though, around that 3 minute marker, they can easily scamper away a tier 1, like Kuraki or CNNK. It's allowing money a little bit more freedom to kind of go roaming around. There's not much to it really. It's, he can't individually take down 2 T69s, 3 1390s, and then 2 tier 1s. The rest of the side obviously has to help out, but there's not a great deal of room here. Maybe he's just expecting a garbage time push. So 2 minutes and 49 left. Kelly getting a little bit more adventurous on the peaks, but that's just because they know that they can back away in time and set something up. Shock still holding the same angle as well. D69 is covered perfectly there. And here's Pizzorni appearing up again. Constantly appearing on the radar, not actually receiving a shell, unlike Podomako and Zenef. And even McMoney's backing around and possibly going down towards the 1-2 line. But yeah, I feel as though this map is pretty much done for here. Is there any movement coming up from Denial, or are they turtling down?
No, they're just finding themselves more defensive positions.
In case they needed it.
Pretty much, yeah. Just like sitting up behind the houses, Butcher's still out there, and they've got tier 1 in G1 too, because they can think, oh, okay, Lucky Kuraki, this is a 2-minute mark, so they might push. But yeah, it's very disappointing for me to see this from both these two teams. I mean, if they want to make this work, then they need to be more aggressive, more exciting for the viewers and for everyone, instead of just turtling down. It just doesn't work in terms of results they need and from a viewing experience. Well, that's my opinion at least, and I think everyone agrees, to be honest. Finally, Butcher does start having a look for a garbage time push, a rubbish time push. 1 minute and 33 seconds left on the game, and 7 players with full HP to find and Butcher to find them.
Yeah, and even Shock backing away from the position that Butcher's pretty much moving into. So I don't think he's going to be in for much luck here. He's nice well out Bishu, but as you said, 1 minute and 16. You can't take a tank down that quickly. Bishu's received 2. There's the 3rd, but it doesn't really equate to much here. 1 minute and 6 seconds left. Bishu may fall, but it might even just give cover for Kelly to chill out in even longer. So not going to really have much to say about this one. It's pretty much a done deal for a draw money. And Matt PL, the M&M combo. Find out Snip. Snip goes down. But still, this is a little bit lackluster from both teams, to my opinion.
Yeah, it certainly is. Denial should have done that earlier with Butcher. They definitely have the advantage now because Bishu's on low HP, means near Pizzorni, Zenef can find them, and they can take him down. Near Pizzorni missing that shell, Zenef trying to reply with his own, and Matt PL taking some damage.
Yeah, he is indeed, but you can see finally they get a little more confident because they know they can put this one out. Materius does find a kill though, and takes him down, but it's to no real effect. With 15 seconds left, it's all eyes on the next couple of maps now. And the worst thing is we can't really take much away from this map because it has been, just a draw. We haven't really seen much of an engagement. There wasn't even an all-in push. It's kind of trickling through now, but the draw will be hitting into place, and it will be 0-0. So it's all about the next maps here. And I don't think it's a surprise that we had a draw on Cliff. It's what we kind of expected to see. It's something very standard. And going into the next map, I'm not sure what it's going to be. Hopefully we see a little bit more action. Can we take anything away from these two teams after that performance?
Not at all. Simple as that. You go for a rubbish time push, garbage time push, and yeah, one team is always going to come out ahead, but that's really because it's not, well, thanks, it's not about coming out ahead. It's more about, who actually wins at the end of the day, who actually takes that victory, as it is with all sports, I guess. But Denial not looking particularly great, and they didn't push in. Lucky Kuraki not looking particularly good either. So there's a lot of questions to be asked about them. But again, it's just the first map. The first map will be a draw as well. But I think it's going to be more aggressive on Himmelsdorf, which will be our next map.
See, now that could be a nice little map coming into, because Denial have always been quite competent on that one. So a little bit of potential from them before, but I'm hoping to see a little more coming into this now. I want to see them actually taking the reins a little bit and actually leading with this, because they're a team who've been consistently within the top 5, even top 6 at some points the previous seasons. Now they need to prove that again. They need to show they're still a good caliber team. I really want to see more from them. Lucky Kuraki have come into this as a new team. I can't exactly tell them, I want more from you because, well, they're still pretty new and they picked up some good wins. But Denial have no real excuses here. And is Himmelsdorf one of their maps?
They looked strong on it, I must admit. They are a team that seems to do pretty well on city maps. It's kind of 50-50. They like the open maps and they've got a few results there. They like the city maps, they've got a few results there. It just depends how they play on the day. If they're feeling confident and is their tactic good. But Denial have been really teaching the teams the standard Himmelsdorf tactic, especially from the south. They like to put tanks in the cap, keep the crossfire on, and really stop the other team from stopping that cap. And that's their ultimate play. They want it. They want the tier 1s there. They want to get the cap as a win, and just take the other team into alert. Lure the other team in, and then go for the kills if they can. But either way, they just want to get the wins for the cap. So for me, Denial is definitely the better team on this map.
So would you say Denial will win it though?
Yeah, I think so. I think
so
this
will be a 1-0 to Denial. All right.
I think so.
You know what? I'm going to stick with... See, I kind of agree because Denial, I feel, are better, heavier tank players. I don't think I've seen too much impressive work from the entirety of Lucky Kuraki. I've seen maybe 1 or 2 players looking really competent, but not, like exceeding that bar. It's hard to deny players like Butcher, Zenef, and anyone else who picks this up, Materius as well. Certainly very solid. So hard to deny them on this map, especially in those tanks. I think this could be, as you said, Denial's one here. But then again, Lucky Kuraki, they're a team that has caused upsets. I'm trying to look back at previous games and see if they actually did pick up Himmelsdorf against either of them. Well, they beat Schoolbus on Himmelsdorf, which is impressive, and there was no Himmelsdorf played against TCM. So they're a team that can do it. Whether or not they do in this one, I don't know. But then again, I'd also put Schoolbus above Denial in Himmelsdorf play. So on paper, in my mind, I guess it's Lucky Kuraki's. But then again, brand new day, new play day. Who knows what we're coming into. I think we are near on ready for this. And this is what we expect to see, correct?
Lucky Kuraki, a little bit odd, I guess. They've picked the triple IS3, double 50-100, double tier 1. Most teams, unless it's on Ensk, go for the triple 50-100, double IS3. Even on Ensk now, teams are going for that triple AMX 50-100. But Denial have gone for that standard lineup, the triple AMX 50-100, double IS3, double tier 1. I expect Lucky Kuraki want to be a little bit more defensive and go for those corner shots as well as the hull down shots.
Well, let's find out. Next map coming up, it's going to be Himmelsdorf. Welcome into map number 2. As promised, it's going to be Winter, Himmelsdorf, and in the north, in blue, will be Denial Esports against the rather southern, rather red Lucky Kuraki. And now, we had a draw on the first map. Nothing too impressive. But now, this is a map that both of these teams can play to a good extent. What are we seeing from the very offset here?
Denial heading up towards our left, Zenith, Neopazoni, and Butcher. I believe that's only one who's not playing in the AMX 5100 is Neopazoni there. So they are heading up towards the hill. I'm not sure how Neopazoni is going to be that fast to get up there. And the rest of them pretty much doing the standard thing. Lucky Kuraki also a little, looks like maybe they're committing a little bit more out there. Shock, Mac Money, CNNK, Kelly, and finally Bisher in the 5100. Also starting to creep their way up a little bit. So the standard start from both these teams, basically committing the tier 1 first, the 5100s behind, getting that information out, and then just going for the engage.
Yeah, so we do have the 2 5100s, one IS3 heading up towards the hill for Lucky Kuraki. Eventually they'll get there. And the others, Shock being the one who kind of split off a little earlier, getting himself down towards the Banana 9. So already there in the IS3, just keeping eyes across, it makes sense. And Matt PL in the IS3 over towards the middle. So no real surprises, as you mentioned. Very, very standard kind of beginning and a slow commit towards the hill. It seems you can see those shells are coming through, probably bouncing off Matt there. I'm not sure Materius would be able to hit a building if he really tried to be that off target. And that would be quite impressive if he decided that was the shot he wanted. But yeah, I think that's a little bit of a bounce, but still. Early couple of shells going through, no one connecting any of them. And at the moment, whose positioning do you prefer?
It's like TCM Gaming's tactic, Lucky Kuraki. They're sitting at the bottom of that hill. They seem to have copied it 1-to-1 and just wait for the other team to come and attack it. Snip might find it first. You can see him just creep around that corner. He's going to probably spot out at least one. Finds one, probably knows there's at least a couple more.
Oh no, it's Matt, sorry.
So just the first bit of information going to Denial. Now they see after what they have to do. Nipa's only going first. He's in the IS3, so maybe this is actually the plan for Denial, because the IS3 does have good turret armor. It might be able to deal with those tanks sitting up below in the H8, H9 area.
Let's have a little look. Obviously, Matt, they're still going back around with Materius, but nothing crazy about it. You can see Bushu there, but look at this. Shock is willing to push up, as is Kelly. They've let the shells fly, and they've certainly given away a little bit of the game there. So having to back away quite quickly. trying to toy with them, probably to draw them out here and go for the peak. And Bishu may be getting the shot back. But we actually have shot coming up, which is the big change. CNN fell back to defend that the bottom of the A line there. As you can see, he's now on his own pretty much in the just the tier 1. Bishu does receive a shell. And I don't think they expected this to be a vulnerable position.
I don't think they expected Nia Pizzoni to be there either in the IS3. That's really the problem they have now. McMoney receives one. And so far, Lucky Kuraki aren't playing it quite as well as TCM Gaming. And they are losing quite a lot of HP. They're being a little bit too static. They have to rotate around and come from a different direction because, well, you still have the two IS3s, one IS3 150 100 for the side of Denali Esports to come along that 8 line if they want to.
Yeah, I think it's going to maybe force a push, but look at this. They are actually doing exactly what you said. The split coming out, so the push up the hill with MapPL, Kuraki and CNNK pushing down the banana line. I'm not sure what he intends to be able to achieve, but they need to be a little bit careful here, surely, because they're still moving into probably a disadvantageous position, and it looks like the players who split off earlier on towards the middle of the map are in trouble. Look at this. Materius there has found MapPL, but on the right side, Potomako now moving around too, and the fire on the hill is going no better for Lucky Kuraki. They've been tracked, held, and surely this is almost game over.
Oh, we have to wait and see. Yeah, Kelly's taking a lot of damage, and so is MapPL.
Yeah, Bishu low, Kelly low. Zenith, though, might go down. That might be the first kill they get on their side. There we have it. Bishu takes him down. And that's a little bit of a bonus, but Butcher comes in and absolutely slices down the opponent. Kelly down, Kuraki down, CNNK, McMoney low. And you can see them battling out with Nias Pizzoni, but I'm not sure if Bishu can really support him that well. Nias Pizzoni now one shot away. MapPL did take down Materius, so maybe there's a chance here for Lucky Kuraki. Finally, Matt will put it off. McMoney there picking up the final kill on that one, but you know, they have the advantage of numbers, but look at that HP pool.
The HP pool of, well, it's more the damage pool from Lucky Kuraki. They've still got so many guns in the game compared to Denali Esports, despite the amount of HP, and really experience tells us having guns in the game is the most important thing if the other team is playing perfectly. So really, Lucky Kuraki have this one to lose. MapPL looking for that corner, as is Potomako, and slowly but surely, Lucky Kuraki, if this game goes on longer, are going to close the net, going to start capping, and that's where the problem comes from for Denial. And Butcher, though, he's a really, really good player in these situations. So he's got, well, 2 tanks, 1 tank on a one-shot MapPL, possibly 3. If he does find them, that's obviously Bishu and McMoney. Good spots out by Butcher, getting that information, finds McMoney and MapPL. So slowly but surely, maybe Denial's ability as players is going to start dictating this game a little bit. But because Lucky Kuraki are so clustered, this is going to be a real problem, and I think Denali are just going to try and run and draw this one out.
Yeah, real shame, as Lucky Kuraki, look how much HP Shock is left on. That's unbelievable. Obviously now he's in a good spot here, but as you said, running and hiding time. But this would be normally when you'd see the team with the advantage, maybe not in HP, but with the numbers, maybe going for maybe a cap. What sort of options are there for Lucky Kuraki? Is there any way they can go for a win, or is it they had to have caught Denial out just a couple of seconds ago?
They can cap. They certainly can cap. They've got 4 tanks left, 4 damaging tanks. They just need to send Shook in first, and maybe try and find a good way for Bishu to engage. And he's obviously going to have those 6 shells in the autoloader. So as long as he comes from an awkward position for Potomako and Butcher, it's going to be very hard for them to deal with him. But again, it's finding that position, and that's really what Butcher and Potomako need to be doing right now, is just getting themselves into a good location where such an awkward position isn't possible. And obviously protecting their cap, that's going to be another big thing for them.
See, I find it very surprising that Lucky Kuraki have not gone on the offensive. Let's bear in mind that on the players alive for Denial at the moment is Ketavan. He's only a tier 1. He's not going to cause any threat to these guys, apart from a cap, maybe. Butcher and Potomako, big chunk of HP. But, you know, there's 4, you know, heavy damaging tanks still in the game for Lucky Kuraki, and they're so unwilling to actually make any sort of commitments here. Very, very, I don't know, I find it very upsetting to see that one. I'd definitely like to see a little bit more, well, willingness to go forward, and I'm not sure if Lucky Kuraki are building up to it, maybe, but they're going to have to speed up a little, because you can see that Potomako there is just kind of perched, waiting for this in case it does come down, and they're covering off their bases, Denial, but there's obviously a lot of positions wide open for Lucky Kuraki to push.
Well, they've no reason not to push. It just baffles the mind why one of these two don't try and attack. You've still got Ketavan alive. You can hide him somewhere. You've still got Mac Money, Bishu, Matt PL, and Shock alive. Matt PL shouldn't be alive in the first place. It's just some terrible play by Meritorious in the IS3. Couldn't hit that first shot as he came around the corner. And obviously that gave Matt PL the advantage when it came to damage, despite, I believe it was Xenef, maybe even Protomako there in the MX5100 trying to get the shots from behind. He only hit 1 out of 3, and once again Denali Sports' accuracy really doesn't help them at all. They just can't hit a barn door really. They get a little bit flustered, I think, maybe, or maybe their lag comes into the equation. But it's all these things they need to be thinking about. But still a 4 versus 3 situation. Well, a 4 versus 2 situation, because really there's only 2 combat tanks left for Lucky Kuraki. Makes no sense why they're not pushing.
I'm not sure if they're just misreading the situation, if they're not aware of the HP of the opponents. I really don't know. I'm kind of baffled here. This does not make sense in my head. Lucky Kuraki had the opportunity. They have the opportunity to do something good here, but they've just kind of let it go to a draw. And I don't know if they feel maybe confident to try and catch Denial out on a later map, you know, if they keep drawing this through. But, you know, they could actually win this one legitimately. They don't have to kind of depend on that sort of cheesy play. But right now it looks like they're kind of stuck there, and Butcher, as you can see on your screens, edging around, maybe going to come back down towards the A-line, or maybe kind of collate together with the others and just play it smart and run to the time, because Denial don't really have the incentive to push it.
No, that's for sure. None of these 2 teams have the incentive, so it's going to be another draw. So Cliff and Himmelsdorf both a draw for these 2 teams. I did say at the beginning this matchup's probably going to be very slow. Lucky Kuraki, pretty campy team. Denali Sports, pretty campy team, and you know they both have questionable decision-making skills. Although you know their engagement should have gone Denal's way if you look at it. Just some questionable. The thing was, Meritorious and Protomako really played questionably, because they were kind of segregated. They were, you know, away from each other. They couldn't support each other in a good way. So got 25 seconds left. Butcher is going to try and find a couple of kills if he can. He's obviously got Protomako there in the background. And in 10 seconds, Mac Money, Bishu, and Matt Peel could all be dead.
Could be, and I almost feel they deserve to go down pretty fast, because they played so damn passively. It's unbelievable. Shock there will be right at the front of it. That IS3 in position. Ladies and gents, we have a draw on map number 2. So, not really the game I was looking for there between these. I wanted to see a little bit more aggression. I wanted to see some commitment. And take me through the hill fight as well, because that was a big changing point.
Well, basically, I thought Denial had the better advantage. They had the top part, they had the higher ground, they were getting some good shots, they got the HP advantage for sure. And then Lucky Kuraki decided to push, which was a good idea, and maybe because of some bad positioning by Denial, they couldn't deal with it. But really where it was won and lost was Meritorious shot against Matt PL, which brought it from a 4-on-4 to like a 3-on-4. So generally, in terms of combat tanks I'm talking about, you know, Meritorious should have won that engagement. Matt PL should have gone down, but he couldn't hit the shots. Protomako missed 2, Meritorious missed 1, and that really is a difference. If Matt PL went down, that would have brought it to 2 full HP MX5100s pretty much. Protomako had only taken 1 shot against 3 low HP tanks. Maybe okay, Shock was on some HP, but generally they could have won in terms of the HP the SA-47 can pump out in a short amount of time.
So far, 0-0 between these 2, now going to the 3rd map, which will be Steps. Now, not a map that's all that conducive to a solid victory either. We used to see a lot of draws on this one. Changed up slightly now, and not so many. But I feel as though this could be another kind of sit and wait and see if these guys decide that they want to actually go for something. Because, let's be serious, there's every opportunity for one of those 2 teams to make something happen in that final map, in the last map. Whether it be obviously a little bit braver from Denial, as they only had 2 combat tanks, or the logical choice from Lucky Kuraki to actually push in, but they just decided not to. But Steps, there's a lot of, you know, it's a fairly large map. It's, you know, quite a polarizing map. Not as polarizing, let's say, as your Prokhorovkas, but still to the extent that one team can be on, you know, the west and one's on the east, and they can stay towards that sort of positioning. Is this going to be another one of those situations?
Yeah, I think it's maybe going to be a little bit slower once again, and that's going to be that 3-minute mark push. It does really depend on if Denial want to be aggressive here. Lucky Kuraki aren't. I think they're going to be a little bit more passive. They haven't been. They made one good. I remember they made one good move against School Bus. They kind of came up from the top with the MX 1390. They made that flanking move from the bottom with the T69s pinching their position in, and that really works. And if they can do that against Denial, then they certainly are going to win. But it's becoming more and more rare for teams to actually go for the winning move beyond that 2.5 minute mark. Obviously, the Russians changed their time limit to 7 minutes. So basically, that takes 3 minutes off your time. So instead of 2.5 minutes, you really need to be put. You have to wait 3 minutes less for that 2.5 minutes, basically, which is not a bad idea. But obviously, it's being trialed with the Russian region, as most things are. First, so that's the kind of thing we need to be looking at in the future. But again, Denial need to be more aggressive. So far, they've been questionable, even worse than Lucky Kuraki and Himmelsdorf. They were definitely losing that game. But it's always a question of how well Butcher and Potomac can play in those 250-100s. Yeah,
so we are seeing those tank lineups starting to appear there. The T69s in play for Lucky Kuraki at the moment. 2 of those and 3 AMX 1390s. But that was the lineup they pretty much had on Cliff, but we saw absolutely nothing from it. Now, I don't think we can say it's conducive to anything, really. It's fairly normal. It looks like, actually, Denial could have the very same.
Yeah, triple MX 1390, double T69, double tier 1 for Lucky Kuraki. The same goes for Denial. As you said, this was the same lineup they took on Cliff, and really is the same lineup for Prokhorovka, Cliff, Steps, all those kind of open-ish maps, more dynamic maps. But Mines as well, it can be used on. But, we see more teams take the T32, for instance, the IS3 as well. But I think, this lineup is most suited for Steps. The Pershing can be used, but I do prefer the T69s because when you do get the flank around on the Trent side, you want to be getting the burst damage with the T69s, which is going to be really important. But as I said before, completely mirrored lineup as we do start to get ready for that third map.
All right. So, assuming they actually go for a win on this one, who wins it?
I think Lucky Kuraki actually has a good idea, a good chance here on Steps.
Well, we'll find out in a second's time. Teams are now ready. Choices have been made. Steps will be that map, and I think I'm going to stick with. I'm going to go for. Oh, there was some really dodgy play on Himmelsdorf from Denial. I'm going to go for Lucky Kuraki. So, guys, let's get ready for Steps. Welcome to map number 3. Currently tied at 0-0. Denial and Lucky Kuraki yet to really do much, is the only way to describe it. Both teams playing after the draws, playing after the passive play, and it's really given them no sort of advantages. Obviously, now moving into the later stage of this matchup, map number 3, we have to see what they can bring. But what are we seeing from the offset?
An aggressive start from Denial, pushing forwards with that AMX 1390 Potomac. Going for the bush spot, looking for maybe a couple of spots across the lines as Lucky Kuraki do head over towards the left side, obviously sending, well, a little bit strange, Bishu and the AMX 1390 are heading over towards the right side. Usually you only see one AMX 1390 together, getting those early spots out, and then they can really start to formulate a plan once they know, hey, look, the team's over the left. If they're not spotted, then they are over towards the right side. But looks like, at least for Denial, they are going to be playing very, very static. Apart from that, an initial push by Potomac and maybe near Pizzorni there, both one in T69, one in the MX 1390. It's a TCM style on Steps a little bit. Well, at least TCM Odin Mortis of Season 3 kind of looking out over the map from their base. And so, well, that same goes for Lucky Kuraki, just looking around the corner. I've never seen Denial actually head around that corner before, so that could be very interesting.
Yeah, a little bit of a firing squad would be waiting. Shock, McMoney there, and Kelly. 23090s and the T69. So, certainly a lot of firepower there if they do go for it. That's not what you want to exactly walk into. But Bishu and Matt PL splitting off towards the northeast side of this map. What do we make of this? Is this just, you know, maybe putting, you know, a little bit of faith in these guys to, you know, play smart and stay fairly alive, you know? But what is the purpose of a 1390 and a T69 together like this on this side of the map?
You have the hull down from the T69, which can support. CNK does get taken down there, though, so Denial now in the lead with the T1 down, so a little bit more spotting ability, and also capping becomes a little bit harder for Lucky Kuraki. A little bit easier for Denial as well. Matt Ketavan, though, starting to edge around this corner. You could find that wall of death from Lucky Kuraki, which would be a good piece of information. Might actually start Denial Esports to push Butcher, though, from behind. This could be dangerous if he crosses that corner there, but Bishu once again being spotted in the T69. Butcher playing pretty aggressively, and if he does head around, he's going to get obliterated.
Yeah, they are ready and waiting for this. The turrets are definitely trained on this angle. Kelly, shock, everyone appears. Butcher tries to back away. One shell comes in, Kelly goes for another. Then now spread out Ketavan too. This is going to be a bloodbath. 2 kills back to back. Kelly and McMoney racking them up here. Butcher goes down and Ketavan. But finally a reply, and they don't know where from. McMoney needs to be careful and to back away and reset the fight. So a good beginning. That strat seemed to work out. Maybe the couple of tanks over towards the northeast were maybe to, you know, get the likes of Denial happy and a little bit more aggressive to push up, but Shock's been called out. Not expecting Potomako to make it here, and this could be disastrous. Lucky Kuraki having a nice strategy, but it could fall to pieces if they're not too careful. Oh,
Zenith finding his way onto Shock.
Yeah, smart play from Zenith. No one really watching Shock's back. Finally, the turrets turn, and Zenith takes a pounding from Kelly and Shock. One more shell, and there we go. Shock will land it. And now we are seeing a bit of a decisive map so far for Lucky Kuraki.
Yeah, it looks like Denial Esports extremely on the back foot by this time. Near Pozzoni, next target falls, leaving only Meritorious and Potomako in the T69 and the AMX 1390. Once again, Lucky Kuraki with that wall of death, and it catches the team out.
Yeah, and I think we might even be seeing a cap beginning coming out from these guys. Shock has, however, been caught. Materius will take him down quite swiftly. No real pain in that one, but you can see the fact that Kuraki has also appeared on the horizon. He's going to try and make a little bit of pressure towards that cap circle. Make sure this is no Himmelsdorf point 2. Potomako trying to back away. Bishu is there. The T69 is now laying into him. He's not going to make it out of this alive. Surely, oh, they absolutely fluffed the shot. But now it's ring of roses, and there's a lot more tanks on the side of Lucky Kuraki who can play this game. And, well, I've got to say it, Materius certainly looking in danger there. Bishu comes in with 1, but Kelly now going to be really doing the damage, doing the job now. Swinging around the side in the 1390, chasing him down, gets the kill. They exchange as Potomako finds Matt, but it looks like Potomako has now met Butcher, and Butcher is, I think he's on reload. I don't think he can make these shots. He's having to play carefully here, leaving to money to come around. He's going to land the shell, and now one player stands for Denial, and it's Snip.
Snip got to do a lot of damage here. Bishu 198.
No joking.
Kelly 895 and McMoney 587, so it's game over. Finally, one of these two teams managed to find themselves the W key and actually get a win, but yeah, Snip's going to be running away as fast as he can for 5 minutes and 2 seconds. Going to be pretty much impossible, and Lucky Kuraki are going to catch up with him at some point in time. So, good start, Lucky Kuraki. You know, I have to say it, that was a really bad play by Denial Esports. So what's the point of sending Ketavan with Butcher if Ketavan's not going to go first? It made no sense at all. It was completely careless, and it was just not Denial Esports of what we've seen before, not a Lemming Tray, not a Mouse Sports. You know, if you're going to commit resources, actually commit them in the right way, and don't send the tank that can actually win you the game with the best player in your team first. And have Ketavan in this tier 1 just head up second and get blown up second. It made no sense, and Lucky Kuraki certainly deserved this win.
Yeah, nicely played from him in the end. I liked the adaptation coming out with that firing squad. I'd like to see what they make of sending those tanks around towards the other side. Snip has now been caught out, showing up on the horizon. But Money, surely not going to land the shell. No, Kelly does in the end, coming through the 1390. And there we have it, Lucky Kuraki picking up map number 3. Don't get me wrong, it took its time, but, you know, interesting tactic, unique style, and it paid off.
Certainly did. We've seen that a couple of times now. First one was on Prokhorovka against Schoolbus. Basically, Lucky Kuraki just put a load of tanks in one position where they know the other team is going to go to at some point in time. And on Prokhorovka, it was kind of up until the A1 area, and they waited for school bus to come along the tree road, then they sprung their trap and just obliterated 2 tanks. This time it was behind that rock section. They waited for Butcher to come round. They were so far backwards that the 50-meter proxy spot didn't go first. But again, you know, it was not my favorite kind of tactic. I like to see on water tanks, but a good enough one, and Butcher fell for it. And again, it was all about that commitment of resources. Ketavan should have gone first in that tier 1, then it should have been Butcher. That was the whole point of Ketavan going there. So 100% deserved for Denali Sports to lose that one. Next map, 4th map, will be Ensk.
Let's bear in mind, if I'm not mistaken, if Lucky Kuraki win this, it's game over, because Denial can do nothing even going on to the 5th.
Yep.
It'd be a 2-1, so it wouldn't really make any effect. And this is the problem when you draw it out initially and you get it down to that final, couple of maps. If it doesn't go your way, and a strategy that you may not like, you may not appreciate, because it's not that beautiful tank element of the strategy coming into effect, it's more of a cheesy one, like we just saw, you can pretty much get yourself out of the game. And this is the danger now on the Denial side. They're going to have to play out their skin here. But then again, Ensk was never a bad map for them back in the day, but then they were never bad on the other maps, and today's not been their day, really. It's been a little bit lacking overall. Your thoughts towards this? Is this a map that Denial can do it on, or is it a little bit too tough? Because I've seen Lucky Kuraki looking quite good on here. It's whether or not, Denial can keep up now. Sure.
Well, Denial have been okay on this map. Lucky Kuraki, okay as well. I would have to say Denial being a little bit better.
They did lose to TCM on it.
Yeah,
actually,
exactly. So. They've been better before. They were extremely good at Ensk at one point in time, but not as good as TCM Gaming, who I think are one of the best teams in Ensk altogether. They've been absolutely fantastic on that one. But just looking at the general performance of Denial on city maps, Himmelsdorf comes to mind. They haven't been playing too well, but tank lineups are starting to come in. Triple IS3 double 5100 double tier 1 for Lucky Kuraki, the standard lineup for Ensk. Triple IS3 double 5100 as well for Denial. Quadruple IS3 5100 double tier 1 for Denial. So basically, Denial have 2 options. They can either draw it and then win the next map to take it to 1 point apiece. They can lose it, then obviously that's game over for them, 2-1. Or they can win it on this one and win it on the next one and actually take it to a win. But that would be pretty hard, because I think Lucky Kuraki has the ability just to go hull down and just camp. Yep.
Well, we're going to find out in a couple of seconds. Once these teams get ready. Very interesting stuff from Denial there. Massive amount of IS3s. We'll have to see how that one goes. So guys, we are now moments away from getting this under effect. And your last prediction?
I think it's going to be... It's always hard to call, but I think Lucky Kuraki are just a better team today.
I tend to agree, and I think we just had to wait for Bishu to rejoin us. Lucky Kuraki currently leading with 1 map to the good. Denial yet to really make a scratch on that scoreboard, yet to really do too much. In complete honesty, they're struggling. So guys, let's find out if the likes of Denial can step up their game here on Ensk. So guys, welcome. My producer is putting me off today. Welcome into map number 4. It will be Ensk as promised. And in the south in blue is Denial Esports. In the north in red is Lucky Kuraki. And well, at the moment Lucky Kuraki have 1 point to hand. But because it's map number 4, if they pick up this map, they'll have such an advantage that Denial cannot change it, therefore win it overall. But the question is, that big IS3 lineup, where's it going?
The reason why you've picked the IS3s is because you want to have the engagement around corners. You don't want the straight line engagements, which is why Denial are going over towards the city side. The right side, the green zone, the rail tracks is, as I said, more for those long straight roads. Better for the 5100, which can just get the continuous damage down. But when you're sitting around corners, you want the high alpha damage, which comes on with the BL9. First shell does come out, and he was only scratching CNNK's paint. But as I said, yeah, you want those BL lines in the hull down positions and also getting some good damage down. So that's where Denial is, all towards the city. Lucky Kuraki definitely playing the more standard lineup, more standard tactic. up towards the green side, and really going to hit putting all their resources, all their tanks, their common tanks, and obviously leaving one tier 1 probably somewhere over there to make sure that Denial aren't going for the quick cap.
Yeah, and they're going to polarize the sides of the map. This worries me. This makes me feel like it might be another draw, but surely that's not what they want to be doing here. I hope not, at least. But 8 minutes and 35 seconds left at the moment. Lucky Kuraki have found a corner, and they seem quite happy there. But they are making their way down, at least from the northeast down towards the south. A couple of shots coming through, nothing really affecting. We see Matt there in the ice 3 make his way down, but Money doing just the same. Kelly in that 5100, and still Kuraki being right at the front here. So it looks like they're happy to put the pressure on, and would that force a move from Denial Esports?
Well, they're not really sure what's gone on. They're not sure where Lucky Kuraki is. The amount of information they have is basically limited to where CNNK is, and that's the only tank they know. They didn't catch anyone else on the cross.
They did see Nias Pizzoni, I believe.
Okay, they saw 2 tanks out of 7, so yeah. Still 5 to find. That doesn't really give you a good idea. And I said, you know, it's all about the information in World of Tanks. You need to be getting a good idea. For instance, I can, you know, for random battles, you know, there's a lot of good tactics for random battles. A lot of good places you can stay in and you know, get a lot of damage down in 70% of the battles. But it's that one battle you play and you go too far forwards into that good spot and you just get obliterated because you didn't have the information. You didn't know where the tanks were. You didn't know what they were doing. You didn't know how aggressive they were being. Usually it's when they're being really aggressive. So you're not going to win despite the fact that it's a good tactic and it's a good place to be. And that's really the fundamental of World of Tanks. You know, information gives you the good position gives you the good damage gives you the win. It's pretty much that linear fashion, as it is with, I guess, most games. Obviously, a little bit more tactical than most games, for sure. You definitely need to think. All these decisions these guys are making are really on point. They need to be making them 100% sure. And once they make them, they need to be 100% on the go. We've seen Scene Play, for instance, kind of make a decision and half back down and go forwards. You know, this isn't Clan Wars. You're not fighting against idiots. You're fighting against the top players in the world. And whether you're a unicum or not and your statistics, it just doesn't matter. Most of these teams, you know, most of these players are pretty average in terms of statistics, and you know, their only real ability is when it comes to the 742 and where they really can bond with their team as Denial starts heading forwards with those 4 IS3s, and if they find anything, it's going to be obliterated. 390 average damage. That's 1,200 damage in a second.
Well, looking at the way Lucky Kuraki are now
1,600, my bad. Maths.
Maths are hard. Never do maths on there. But do you think Denial will actually commit to maybe a cap, or is this too much? Because looking at the positioning here, Matt's still kind of back, and you've got Shock at the back there as well. Kelly, Bishu, as far away as possible from each other as well. And is this a moment Denial can go for a win, or are they just trying to, you know, make sure they have the information ready if there was a counter push of some kind?
Well, they've gone up pretty far, actually. I'm surprised how aggressive they're being at this point. Not sure if the cap really works on Ensk, because, you know, if you look at this view, if you cap here, the other team can stop the cap from obviously all along here. They can stop it all along here. More importantly, they can stop it from here, straight through the middle. So really, it's kind of a, I don't know, it's kind of a false open map. It kind of gives you the false impression that there is actually cover, but there isn't. There isn't any cover. The only cover that really exists on this one is here, and that only stops teams from shooting from here. So there's a lot of options, but none of them are good ones when it comes to capping on Ensk, because we do start heading towards that 4-minute mark. Denial looking for a way in, but Lucky Kuraki have committed Mac Money back towards their base, so it's going to be hard for Denial to cap.
Yeah, a bit of a 3-2 split coming out. McMoney, Mad PL, Shock, all back here now. And Kelly and Bishu being the only 2 really far forward. 5100s sitting there, chilling out. And CNNK up there as well. Correct. Just holding the central line, and it's pretty much a very, very defensive team. They really don't want to commit here. Matt PL doing what he can, firing across. Matt Money finding a better spot, but I feel this is going to be another draw out.
Yep, good chance, but we've still got 4 minutes, and Denial do need to start getting this win because, well, Lucky Kuraki on the next map, I believe, probably going to be Mines or Ruinberg. It's the two we have. Prokhorovka's left as well, but I think we see more teams pick Mines as the last map, and it's pretty easy as long as you're not TCM Gaming to draw out on Mines. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But yeah, as I said, Lucky Kuraki 1-0 up after that. Decent positioning on steps, giving them a win, taking down Butcher, then Ketavan. So Denial are going to have to try and take the win, and that's really what they're looking for. Meritorious, Potomako, and Nia Pazzoni creeping forwards in those IS3s, looking for a position onto Lucky Kuraki. Some good fire, and the IS3 got plenty of HP, and that's what Denial Esports has to do. They have to have a longer engagement, because the shorter the engagement is, the more damage those 5100s can do.
Well, at the moment they are gearing up on the horizon. The IS3s there in a line. There's not much else there with Denial, so saying the IS3s is a bit of a well, false statement really, but still, the cap has begun, so maybe they're looking for the challenge here. But, you know, there's still only 3 players back from Lucky Kuraki at the moment. McMoney moving in a little. He's Pazzoni fighting Karak there, has kind of lightened the load a bit, but Kelly moving forward now, finding Butcher down the other side. This could be a base race to come down on this, and oh, Bishu's under threat from Butcher. They're exchanging shells. Butcher going a little lower now, and Bishu claims it. Kelly moving in, CNNK moving in. This is going to be a base race, and I've got to say it, I kind of prefer Lucky Kuraki's.
Yeah, certainly I do as well. Butcher actually getting killed was the worst thing. He's playing really, really badly now, and Mac Money's going to try and stop this one. And because Butcher's dead, they haven't got the cross, and it looks bad for Denial.
It certainly does. Now keep your eyes on that timer. This is very, very close between the two. Kelly is in a prime position now, covered off, has Bishu, has CNNK, but this is getting close down the other end as well. Shock needs to land one of these shells to really alleviate the pressure coming through. Potomako is very low. Fire comes in. It's not going to land perfectly. Who's going to win this one, Ollie?
I'm not sure. I think it's probably going to be Lucky Kuraki, and they've only got 1 second to count.
1 second left. There we have it. Lucky Kuraki do pick up the victory in the end. Their base race was just a little bit better, and they do win overall. Yeah,
they've won the series with a 2-0 defeat, and I mean, fair enough. Denial really poor. Butcher, I'm not sure if that was actually Butcher playing them, because he lost both games for them. Really aggressive on steps, really aggressive on Ruinberg. They lost it. You know, on Ruinberg then, basically all Butcher had to do was live. That's all he had to do, not get spotted and live, and he gets himself just blown up because, you know, the base race works, but when you can get the other team on the cross and it's shooting up those railroads, it can stop you in that base, doesn't matter where you are. And then they had the tanks from the top. Butcher just needs to be alive and keep Lucky Kuraki on their toes for as long as possible and not die within the first 10 seconds of the engagement, and that really did give it to Lucky Kuraki. So 2-0 at this point. They're going to make it a 3-0 maybe.
I don't think they have to.
Nope.
It is 2-0. That is enough for a win in a best of 5. You can't do any more than that. They could make it 3 or it could be 2-1, but it does not change the outcome of the result. Therefore, victory over to Lucky Kuraki. And I think you said it right there. Denial looking weak, looking shaky. Mistakes have been made by players who never used to make them. I don't know what's going on with that lineup, but they need to sort themselves out pretty damn fast. Other teams are improving. They are slipping, and quite quickly as well. So hopefully they can kind of pull themselves back together here. But Lucky Kuraki, good win. Not maybe the prettiest of tanks we've ever seen, but talking of pretty tanks, we do have Virtus Pro coming up next. So at least then we do get a little bit of a glimpse at the glitz and glamour of World of Tanks on occasion when these guys play that perfect World of Tanks. And they will be facing against EPS, so a team that could cause an upset. We're going to have to wait and find out, because guys, obviously before all that kicks off, you will have to check in with Melly at the social media desk, who'll be coming to you live from where we are sitting, and we're getting out of the way, and she'll be telling you how to get involved with us here in the studio. So guys, we're going to go to a very short break. When we're back, not only will there be Melly joining you, but there'll also be Virtus Pro and Evil Panda Squad following. So don't go too far. We'll be back in 5.